Hello, I'm Prathyush, and today I want to talk to you about Greta Gerwig's Barbie starring Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling.
Ideas live forever.
There is something so spectacularly shallow in Barbie, but first you would have to wade through how deceptively silly it is to even scratch at this shallow shore. Stereotypical Barbie, played by Margot Robbie in Barbie Land, is racked by an existential crisis. Her feet, which were once arched, inclined by her steep heels, are now flat on the floor. She has cellulite. She thinks of death. On waking up in the morning, her breath tastes stale. Something, somewhere, is deeply wrong. Her owner in the real world, Gloria, played by America Ferrera, is osmotically giving stereotypical Barbie these issues because she herself is going through them. Such is the rip in the space-time fabric. According to the sequestered sensei of Barbie Land, Weird Barbie, played by Kate McKinnon, Gloria needs to be met and inspired out of these ugly thoughts, so stereotypical Barbie, along with Ken, played by Ryan Gosling, her boyfriend, but not really, chart an odyssey into the real world. Rid her of these thoughts, sure, but what of the cellulite? How is Barbie going to help Gloria get rid of that and thereby rid herself of that? The movie does not offer much by way of clarity. Though it is tempting to note that the plus-size model Ashley Graham, while discussing her Barbie avatar, insisted on not just belly fat, round arms and no thigh gap, but also cellulite. This last demand for cellulite was rejected because it might look like a mistake. Once stereotypical Barbie and Ken find themselves skating in Los Angeles, their lives, if life is what we want to call it, is spun on its head. Ken encounters patriarchy and horses in the real world and is intoxicated by all this attention his ab-baked body receives, something he was starved of in Barbie Land. Barbie, on the other hand, recognizes the violence in the male gaze, what art critic Jean Berger described as the perpetual condition of women watching themselves being looked at. A strange awareness overcomes stereotypical Barbie. For the first time, she weeps. Here is the important distinction between Barbie Land and the real world. That in Barbie Land, even though women reign supreme from the courts to the construction sites, the men are never violated, merely like embellishments ignored unless heeded. To be powerless in the real world, however, is inflected by a more sinister, ass-grabbing violence. Meanwhile, Mattel, the corporation that has been making the Barbie doll since 1959, and also the corporation that has funded this film, is trying to track down stereotypical Barbie and Ken and seal the seam between Barbie Land and the real world, so such osmotic lunges across worlds are no longer possible. Will Ferrell plays the unhinged CEO who only wants to be tickled between meetings. The real world and Barbie Land run on different logical fuel, and the Mattel boardroom with its heart-shaped table around which human men discuss dolls is somewhere floating between the two. You don't have to know what is real because that question is rendered moot by the film's flippance. You only have to know the implication of realness. The sadness of the human heart, the patriarchy that glazes it, the small joys like motherhood, the film suggests, that make this life worth it nonetheless. The film tries and terribly stumbles in offering a simple answer to a profound question. Why be human? The silly, truly silly wave to shore past is this. Barbie is a doll, not a person, a doll. The film wants to both insist on her dollness, her lack of genitals, for example, and her sentience, her agency, her authority. She is both the cause and consequence of quote-unquote sexualized capitalism. She is both problem and solution. A decade ago, rehabs.com, a website which holds people's hands through their eating disorders, among other conditions, made a quaint conclusion. They reckon that if the traditional Barbie were life-sized, she would be 5 feet 9 inches tall, heel height built into this I assume, with a 16-inch waist. That waist size means there's only enough space for half a liver and some inches of intestine. It is a physically impossible body that has created an ideal that has rouged the imagination of generations. Barbie the film wants to hold this body accountable for its sins while also deriving joy from the very things that made it sinful, its unreal beauty. So far, so hypocritical. But to be truly silly, aesthetically, narratively, is to have an audacity which is missing here, except in Gosling's performance, which digs its gorgeous face heart first into the role. It's a performance that you want to laugh at and root for, grab at and bat on all the same. Besides, who knew the word beach, Ken's job, is so phonetically inclined towards humor?
Let's beach off.
Anyone who wants to beach him off has to beach me off first.
I will beach both of you off at the same time.
The film, though, is reluctantly silly, as though with one winking eye on realism. It hopes that the silliness of the staging is not mistaken for the silkiness of the messaging. The blowout party does not have that electricity which would transplant the joy across the space-time continuum of the theatre screen. Sarah Greenwood's production design, Jacqueline Duran's costume design, Rodrigo Prieto's cinematography swirl in the Pepto-Bismol plastic sheen, neither evoking that stain of beauty, that ruthless gorgeousness of the built world, entirely happy in the muted impact of its sartorial choices. The film, with its jerking forward motion and its fragile logic which keeps getting invoked, has nothing left to do but collapse. Greta Gerwig is a gifted storyteller. Lady Bird, and to a lesser extent Little Woman, were buoyed by her capacity to be both sardonic and sincere in the same bat of an eyelid. But those films were showed by character, not ideology. How can you both call out the fast feminism of Mattel while also embodying it? This is the shallow core of Barbie, making fun of casting Margot Robbie as a stereotypical Barbie doll while also insisting on the impact of this kind of body being mainstreamed, for example. There is something uneasy here, an ideological bankruptcy. In Barbie, feminism is the vaccine to patriarchy's smallpox. That's the film's metaphor, not mine. But what feminism is this? The film stews in its ambiguity, happy to signal a broadness of ideology while puppeting the very narrowness that seems to have defied the feminist roar. Well, at least Barbie now wears flats, not heels. So far, so revolutionary. Besides, no ideology that refuses to take desire seriously should be taken seriously. There is something ironic about these perfectly sexualized bodies, abs and ample bosom, that are left to rot dry and sexless. These unrealistic standards of beauty which the film rails against are rooted in desire. But by merely wrapping the knuckles of these standards and ignoring desire, the film makes its fight against the patriarchy look far more easy, far less matted than it truly is. It is a starched vision of the world, one that pursues unending euphoria. But as Amya Srinivasan writes in the coda to her essay Right to Sex, there will still be heartbreak in utopia.